The morning mist clings to the ancient savanna like a shroud of death. Somewhere in the tall grass, yellow eyes gleam with predatory hunger. A twig snaps, then another. The silence that follows is more terrifying than any roar. 6.5 million years ago, when humanity was nothing more than a fragile whisper in the evolutionary wind, survival wasn't just a struggle. It was an art form painted in blood and sacrifice. Today, we uncover the story of a hunt that went terribly wrong, where love became the ultimate weapon against extinction. This is the tale of the last hunt. The day when a single choice echoed through generations, shaping the very essence of what it means to be human. The pre-dawn darkness hung over the African landscape like a funeral veil. Acacia trees stood sentinel against the star-scattered sky, their thorny branches reaching toward heaven like the desperate fingers of the dying. In the distance, the haunting call of a hyena pierced the silence, a sound that spoke of death and decay, of bones picked clean under a merciless sun. She was a female Homo habilis named Kala. Her weathered hands gripped a crude stone spear, knuckles white with tension. The tool felt foreign in her grasp, yet familiar, a paradox that defined her species' precarious position between beast and something more. Her dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, scanned the grassland ahead where shadows danced like spirits of the forgotten dead. The herds moved east, whispered her mate Gran, his voice barely audible above the whisper of wind through dry grass. His scarred face told stories of countless hunts, each mark a testament to survival against impossible odds. The children grow thin. We must follow. Behind them, huddled in the shelter of an ancient baobab tree, their offspring waited. 3 small forms wrapped in animal hide, their eyes reflecting the dying embers of their fire like tiny stars. The youngest, barely able to walk, made soft mewling sounds that tugged at Kayla's heart. They had not eaten meat in 5 days. The morning air carried scents of danger, the musky odor of big cats, the acrid smell of vulture droppings, and underneath it all, the sweet, sick smell of decay. Something had died recently. Something large. Kala's fingers traced the rough bark of their sheltered tree, feeling the deep grooves left by saber-toothed claws. This territory belonged to killers far more efficient than her small band. Yet hunger was a master more cruel than any predator. We move at first light, she decided, her voice carrying the weight of leadership. Stay close. Watch the grass. The Deathbringers hunt when the sun is young. As the first pale rays of dawn crept across the horizon, painting the sky the color of dried blood, Kala couldn't shake the feeling that today would be different. Today, something would change forever. The wind shifted, carrying with it a new scent, one that made her blood run cold. Fresh predator musk, close, too close. The sun climbed higher, transforming the landscape into a furnace of golden grass and burning stone. Heat waves rose from the earth like the souls of the departed, distorting the horizon until reality itself seemed to bend and waver. Kyla led her family deeper into the hunting grounds, following the faint trail left by a herd of early horses, small, desperate creatures that had become their only hope for survival. The grass here grew taller, reaching past their waists, creating a maze of green corridors where death could lurk unseen. Every step forward was a gamble with fate. Every rustle in the vegetation could signal their last breath. Gran walked behind her, his makeshift spear ready, eyes constantly moving. Their eldest child, a boy of perhaps 8 summers, helped carry the youngest, while the middle child, a girl with her mother's fierce eyes, clutched a sharp stone in her small fist. "Mother," the girl whispered, her voice tight with fear, "something watches us." Kala felt it too, the electric sensation of being studied, measured, evaluated as prey. Somewhere in the golden maze around them, predators moved with deadly patience. The smell grew stronger with each passing moment. The rank odor of carnivore breath, the metallic scent of dried blood on fangs. They crested a small rise, and below them spread a scene from nightmares. The horse herd lay scattered across a depression in the land, their bodies torn and partially consumed. Massive paw prints in the bloodied earth told the story. Saber-toothed cats, a pride of them. "We should turn back," Gron breathed, but his words carried no conviction. They all knew the truth. There was nowhere to retreat to. Their territory had been claimed by other predators, other desperate families of early humans. This hunt was their final chance. Kala studied the kill site with the calculating eye of a survivor. The cats had fed and left, but they would return. The question was when. And more importantly, could her family reach the remaining meat before the killers came back? A sound made them all freeze. Not the rustle of wind through grass, but something else. Something that spoke of movement with purpose. Hunting. "Down," Kala hissed, pushing her children into the tall grass. "Don't breathe. Don't move." Through the golden stalks, she caught a glimpse of movement. Sleek, powerful forms padding through the grass with deadly grace. The saber-toothed cats had not left after all. They were still here, still hunting. And now they had caught the scent of something new. Something warm and breathing and afraid. Terror has a taste metallic and bitter, like copper coins dissolved in sour water. Kala tasted it now as she watched the massive forms of 3 saber-toothed cats emerge from the grassland like demons materializing from hell itself. Each beast was larger than a modern lion, their curved fangs gleaming white as bone in the merciless sunlight. The leader, a scarred female with eyes like molten amber, lifted her massive head to test the wind. She knew. She had found them. Kala's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Behind her, pressed into the earth, her children lay motionless. Even the youngest seemed to sense the mortal danger that surrounded them. Gron's breathing was so controlled it barely disturbed the grass stems around his face. The hunting cats moved with terrifying intelligence, spreading out to form a triangle around their hidden prey. This wasn't random predation. This was strategy, coordination, the kind of pack hunting that had made these creatures the apex predators of their world. "When I move," Kala whispered, her voice no more than a breath against Gron's ear, "take the children and run. Don't look back." "No." His response was immediate, fierce. "We stay together. We fight together." But Kala had already seen the truth in the amber eyes of the lead cat. They were outmatched, outmaneuvered. The only chance, the only hope lay in sacrifice. One life, given so that others might continue. The grass around them began to move, not from wind but from the careful approach of death itself. The cats were closing in, taking their time, savoring the hunt. They had learned, through countless kills, that fear made the meat taste sweeter. A twig snapped. Close. Too close. The youngest child whimpered barely a sound, but enough. The lead cat's head swiveled toward them like an arrow finding its target. Those terrible eyes locked onto their hiding place, and lips peeled back to reveal fangs designed for crushing skulls and severing spines. Time slowed to a crawl. Kala could see every detail with supernatural clarity. The dried blood on the cat's muzzle from its previous kill. The way sunlight played across its rippling muscles. The calculated patience in its movements as it prepared to strike. This was the moment. The pivot point between life and extinction. Kala rose from the grass like an avenging spirit, her crude spear held high, and released a war cry that echoed across the savannah. Part challenge, part fury, part desperate love for the lives she was about to save. The world exploded into violence. The lead saber-tooth launched herself forward with the speed of lightning striking earth. Her massive body cut through the air, fangs extended, claws spread wide to embrace death. But Kala was already moving, diving to the side, her spear thrust forward in a desperate attempt to find flesh. The stone point scraped along the cat's ribs, drawing blood but not stopping the attack. The beast's momentum carried her past Kala and toward the children. Behind them, the other two cats broke from concealment, their hunting roars shaking the very ground. "Run!" Kala screamed, scrambling to her feet as the wounded cat spun with fluid grace. "Run!" Gron grabbed the two younger children and sprinted toward a cluster of rocks 50 yards away, the only shelter in this killing ground. The eldest boy hesitated, looking back at his mother with eyes wide with terror and the terrible understanding that comes too early to some children. "Go!" Kala roared, and the boy fled. The lead cat circled her now, blood dripping from the shallow wound, amber eyes burning with rage and pain. The other two had given chase to Gron and the children, but they were gaining ground slowly. The rocks were close enough that they might make it if she could buy them time. If she could hold Death's attention long enough. The cat feinted left, then struck right. Massive paws whistling through the air where Kala's head had been a heartbeat before. She rolled, came up running, leading the beast away from her family. Each step took her farther from safety, deeper into the killing ground, but each step also gave them precious seconds to reach the rocks. Behind her, she could hear Gron shouting commands, encouragements, desperate prayers to whatever gods might listen. The sound of his voice meant he was still alive, still fighting, still protecting their future. The cat pounced again, and this time there was nowhere to dodge. Kala spun, bringing her spear around in a wild arc, and felt it connect with something solid. The cat's scream of pain and rage split the air like thunder, but her victory lasted only a moment. Claws raked across her shoulder, opening furrows in her flesh that burned like liquid fire. She stumbled, tasting blood, feeling her strength begin to ebb. But when she looked toward the rocks, she saw Gron helping the last child to safety. They had made it. Her family would survive. The knowledge filled her with a fierce joy, even as the predator's shadow fell across her for the final time. Pain is a teacher that instructs with fire and blood, and Kala learned its lessons as the saber-toothed claws found her again. This time, the wounds were deeper, more serious. She could feel her life leaking out onto the thirsty earth, feeding the ancient cycle of death and rebirth that had ruled this land since time began. But she was not alone in her suffering. Her spear, crude though it was, had found its mark in the cat's shoulder, and the great predator now moved with a pronounced limp. Blood matted the golden fur around the wound, and each breath came with a pained rasp. The beast was dying too slowly, but surely. From the safety of the rocks, Gron's voice carried across the savannah. "The others retreat. You wounded their leader, they're pulling back." It was true. The two cats that had pursued her family now circled at a distance, unwilling to engage with prey that had proven so costly. In their predator minds, the calculus was simple. A wounded pack leader meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant danger. But the lead cat would not retreat. Pride, pain, and fury had driven her beyond the realm of simple survival instinct. This had become personal, a duel to the death between two mothers protecting what they loved most. Kala understood. If their positions were reversed, if something threatened her cubs, she would fight with the same relentless ferocity. The cat charged again, but her movements were slower now, less coordinated. Kala sidestepped, bringing her spear around in a clumsy but effective thrust that opened another wound along the beast's flank. The cat stumbled, nearly fell, then turned with a snarl that spoke of desperation. "You're dying," Kala whispered to her adversary, and there was no triumph in her voice, only a strange kind of respect. "We're both dying." The truth of it settled over them both like the lengthening shadows of afternoon. They were locked in a spiral toward death, each blow they exchanged hastening their mutual destruction. But only one of them needed to survive long enough to see the end. The cat gathered herself for one final attack, muscles bunching, fangs gleaming. This would be her last chance. Everything she had left poured into a single decisive strike. Kala planted her feet, raised her spear, and prepared to meet death with the weapon she had learned to wield. Love transformed into courage. Desperation refined into deadly purpose. The charge began. The final dance commenced. And across the savannah, 3 small voices called out to their mother, their words carrying power that transcended species, that spoke to something fundamental about the bonds that tie families together across the vast sweep of evolutionary time. The collision was titanic, 2 forces of nature meeting at the intersection of survival and love. The saber-tooth's final charge carried all her remaining strength, a desperate gambit to claim at least one victory from this disastrous hunt. Her fangs sought Kayla's throat with surgical precision, while massive paws reached out to pin and crush. But Kayla had one advantage her opponent lacked. She was already dying, and the dying have nothing left to lose. As the cat struck, Kayla didn't try to dodge or parry. Instead, she drove forward, accepting the fangs that punched through her shoulder like spear points, embracing the claws that raked across her ribs. Her own weapon, crude but driven by desperate love, found the soft spot beneath the cat's chin and drove upward, deep into the brain. They fell together, predator and prey locked in a final, fatal embrace. The cat's death throes were violent but brief, a few mighty shudders, then stillness. Kayla's passing was quieter, more gradual, like a candle flame slowly guttering out. From the rocks came the sound of running feet. Gran reached her first, falling to his knees beside her broken form, his scarred hands gentle as he turned her face toward the sky. The children clustered around, their young faces etched with grief beyond their years. "You did it," Gran whispered, his voice thick with tears he had never learned to shed properly. "The others have fled. We're safe." Kayla's vision was growing dim, but she could still see their faces, still see the future she had purchased with her blood. Her youngest, who would grow strong and clever. Her daughter, who carried the fierce spirit that would echo through generations. Her eldest boy, who would become a protector of others. And Gran, her mate, her partner, who would teach them all the lessons she could no longer share. "Tell them," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "Tell them why ... But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she reached out with the last of her strength and touched each of their faces, memorizing the warmth, storing it up like treasure for the long journey ahead. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of copper and gold, Kayla's breathing slowed, then stopped. But something else began in that moment, something that would ripple forward through countless generations. The children would remember. They would carry the story of this day, of a mother's sacrifice, of the moment when love proved stronger than death. They would tell their children, who would tell theirs, and slowly, over thousands of years, the story would change and evolve. But the heart of it would remain. That humanity's greatest strength had never been our tools or our intelligence. It was our willingness to die for each other, to sacrifice everything for the continuation of love. As darkness gathered over the African savanna, Gran built a small fire beside his mate's body. The flames danced against the night, casting shadows that seemed to tell stories of their own stories of the long journey from these humble beginnings to something greater, something that would one day touch the stars. The hunt was over, but the story of what it meant to be human had only just begun. In the distance, a new sound echoed across the ancient landscape, not the roar of predators or the cry of prey, but something else entirely. The sound of a family singing together in the darkness, their voices raised against the night, carrying forward the memory of sacrifice and the promise of tomorrow.